Shalom, beloveds of the King. I just want to be able to leave a message in this day, as Abba has really been doing a great work over the last 2 weeks or so, and many things coming to surface, many things being exposed, many things that Abba's doing in this time. And even though it's been a time of great turmoil within myself, within the things that I'm having to go through, it's like the Father really exposes your heart to yourself. And in this time, it's given me time to be able to reflect on many things. And truly, I have seen the blessing of being able to be in a land that is the land of promise, that is the land of covenant, that in this land you truly do not experience what you would be experiencing in the nations around the world right now in this time. This is a time where in the nations of the world people have been celebrating a great festivity. And in a way, I think it has been part of my difficult time, in the sense of where this is the first time that I can actually say in my life that I've been separated from my family in this time of when it's a time when people, especially if you live in South Africa, it's going to be a time of the December holidays, and it's a time of holiday, it's a time of where families are together and get together. And that is more what I'm referring to, as opposed to the festivities of other things which we have been delivered, which I would like to speak about today in a little bit more in depth. So if we really look and see, it's been so difficult for me because actually since I have been married, which is 28 years, and since I've been married, over this time I've never been separated from my husband, and since I've had children, I've never been separated from my children. And this has been a time of a season of where we've always been together as a family, and especially seeing as though this would be a time of December, would be a time of leave, and it would be a time of when you would be able to spend time with your family. And this would be a time of when we would be away on holiday, and where we would be together as a family, sharing as a family, being able to enjoy each other's company as a family. And now, me being stripped from them has brought many things to the surface of within my own heart, which I've had to look at and I've had to deal with, because Abba truly is wanting a pure bride, and he wants us to be able to have the right motives of our hearts, and he's not going to share his throne with anyone, and he doesn't want to share his heart, your heart, with anyone. Your heart is to be totally and utterly surrendered and dedicated to him, and there are to be no idols. And it's amazing how he subtly is able to bring things to surface to make you realize that your heart is divided, and that your heart has other idols, and that your heart will desire for things more than it can desire him. Now, I would not have confessed that. I would not have agreed to that, especially when he reminded me, just in this week, he has reminded me in the Shabbat that's just gone by, when he reminded me 10 years ago, when he said, your husband and your children are idols in your life. And I thought, no. He says, you love them more than you love me. I said, no, Abba, I love you. See, with our lips we're able to say many things. And I said, no. And he says, lay them down because they're idols. And I said, but you gave them to me. You gave me a husband and you gave me children. They need to be put on an altar. And, I surrendered them on an altar. And he said, and the day will come when you will have to choose between me and them. Who will you choose? And it's very easy. We offer the Father lip service. And when we do, we genuinely believe in our hearts that this is the way it is. And I said to him, Abba, when the day comes, I choose you. I love you. And I choose you above everything. Well, you know what? It was only going to be, myself being here, now really being stripped away from my family. I do not have my husband. I do not have my children. I do not have the rest of my family, not my mother. And this is now a time of where many people are enjoying time with their families. And here I am alone in Eretz Israel. And where is my family? And I found myself crying many days, pinting for what I don't have. Until Abba said, do you see? I told you that these were idols. And had to really bring this to surface for me to realize that I was craving for something that was not my reality at this point in time. And Abba had to really expose the deeper things of my heart to be able to show me that my heart is still not solely after him. And these days of when he shines a magnifying glass within you and he shows you, and he showed me how, you see, my idea, and this is why we were in a wrestling time, because my idea of Abba, when I come to Israel, I come with my family, and I had a picture of what my inheritance would look like. And now my inheritance that I'm walking in was not quite measuring up to the picture that I had of the way I wanted my inheritance to be. And because of this, really crying out to Abba, because of the pain that I find within my heart that I'm having to deal with, because it didn't quite look like that. Right now, I didn't want to have to be separated from my husband. I didn't want to have to be separated from my children. And yes, I love my Abba, I love my Abba Father, but this was not quite what I would have wanted to sign up for. But then he reminded me, and he said, how many times have you cried out to me? Abba, I need to be on a mountain. I need to be alone with you. How I long to be set apart with you. And now when he gives you the desire of your heart, you come back and you complain. And you don't quite like the way it looks. And these are the struggles in our lives of what we go through, and the things that we have to face, and the things that, you see, we can give a lot of lip service and we can speak many things. But there is a time that he brings you into a place of where he needs to purify those deeper things within you, that he reveals to the surface that we don't always understand and that we don't always see. And I would be honest with you, I truly believe that 10 years ago, I did place my husband and my children on an altar. But the day was going to present itself when I was going to see that which I did, which I believed I really did with my whole heart, and when he said, when the day will have to come for you to choose, who will you choose? I truly believed that I was going to choose him. because that was the intention of my heart. But you see, He needs to reveal to us the real things that are dwelling within our hearts that we cannot always see until we are presented with the situation. And you see, now when I have so much time to be able to be alone, this is when there's a great magnifying glass that's really able to shine. And, speaking to my husband, every day, and, how he's, my sons are on holiday and they're able to spend time together. They have not gone on holiday as a family, but they're able to spend time together. And now this makes me feel at a disadvantage because this is what I desired. I desired to be with them. But this is not what He desires right now. And He has me here for a time, for a reason, for a purpose. This is the land of the inheritance that He's brought me into. And there is a greater work that He needs to do. And you see, this is how He was showing me how when we go, like an Esther, we've been called for such a time as this. And like Esther was called into the palace. And it was very interesting because when I was reading that, it said that she was given 7 maidens, 7 helpers to be able to help her, to groom her, to prepare her. And so when we look into that, it's a lot deeper than what we think. Why 7? Why not just 1? And so there's levels of purification and levels of dying that we need to go through. And then when I looked at that area of, when I looked at that scripture, in the book of Esther, and how it says that she was prepared, first with the oil, first with, the spices of the myrrh that was to be able to bring her for a burial, for a death process. And, I've really believed that as I've come into the land of Israel, that's, this is part of a process, almost like, I've been saying to myself, these first 6 months was really a part of a dying, a part of a surrendering, but a dying of where you've got to leave the familiar, where you've got to leave, just like Esther, she had to leave her uncle, she had to leave her people, she had to leave the people that she was, it was her family, it was her friends, it was her familiar place, it was the place of where she was brought up, it was her customs, her traditions, her things that she knew. But she was being sent to be able to come apart, to be able to come to a place of where she was going to be groomed in a palace, to be able to be prepared to stand before the king. And so, at the end of the day, I'm just looking for that scripture now in Esther that I wanted to read. And so, when we look at the place that the Father brings us to, and when, prophetically, I look at things in a prophetic way, and my life is a prophetic walk, and so many times when the Father reveals things to me and the Father explains things to me, He reveals them to me in a prophetic way. And so I have seen this walk of mine as for such a time as this you have been created, and like Esther being taken out of her environment but coming into her destiny, so myself coming out of my environment, this is myself coming into my destiny. But little did I know that it was going to come with many challenges and many thorns and many thistles and many difficulties and many things that were going to truly be a challenge that I didn't understand. And I was under the impression, this is the land I'm coming to, and wow, I'm going to meet with my king, and this is what I've desired for so long, that I've been desiring this, and this is me coming into my destiny, this is me coming into my call. But when we start to walk it out, we have an idea, we have a mindset, we have a preconceived mindset of the way the inheritance looks, of the way it's supposed to look. And we have our own mindsets. We have our own religious systems that we've put in place, and the way we think the Father should operate. And there's many things. And these are all the things that the Father is now starting to slowly, little by little, He's got to strip you completely. Strip you so that you may be able to come to that place of being set apart. And what does it look like? And what does it entail? And this is why in the season and in this time, Father is revealing many things, and Father is exposing many things, and Father is wanting a pure bride. And what does that mean? And what does it look like? And what is the greater plan of what He's busy with? Because if we do not understand Father's greater plan, then we walk about this earth in a very aimless. We've got no purpose. We've got no direction. And we run around like chickens without a head. And there's no direction. And that is why it is of the utmost importance that we need to understand, to get onto Father's plan, onto Father's agenda, onto understanding what Father is wanting to do. And that is why that is really the cry of my heart, is that I said, Father, I need to know, what are you doing? I need to know, what are you saying? I need to know, what is this all about? Because this is not just about my destiny and my call. This is about you. This is about your purpose. This is about your plan. This is about what you want to do. This is about a greater purpose and a greater plan that's got to do with the kingdom. And we are all servants in this kingdom. And there is only one king. And the servants all have different functions. No one is greater than the other. But each one together makes up a bigger plan that's got to do with serving the king. There is only one king in this kingdom. And we servants have a function. Just like a body is made up of many limbs. And a body cannot turn around and say, well, I don't need the hand. And, I don't need the foot. And, I don't need the little toe. If we don't have the big toe on our foot, we battle with even balancing. And so no one limb is more important than the other. And this is what we need to understand in the body of Messiah right now, is that we need to understand that each one of us has got a function. Each one of us has got a purpose. But sometimes I look at the body of Messiah and I get so grieved, because it's almost like they want to be in competition with each other, and they want to be able to make one be better than the other. And it's not like that. And at the end of the day, each one has its purpose. And each one needs to fulfill what the Father has brought them to fulfill. And what the Father is trying to make me understand in this hour and in this time is saying, Natalia, you have your purpose. of what you have to do in my kingdom. And right now, you want to be part of something that is of your soulish realm. But that soulish realm is not part of my plan right now. And it's what you want. It's what you desire. But that's my selfish desire. And I need to lay that down. And I need to pick up His purpose, His plan, and His desire for what He wants to do in this time. And so, I just want to read this here of Esther, and it says, and the maiden pleased Haggai. I'm going to read it to you from the Amplified Bible. As you know, these days Abba's got me picking up my different Bibles because he's trying to give me a bigger picture. I love my scriptures, and that is my Bible that I read all the time. But he's saying, sometimes I just need you to be able to just get a bigger picture. Because there's some things that can be explained in the one in a way that is not necessarily explaining in the other. And he got me to read this because there's something written here that I didn't find in the scriptures of a deeper understanding, because it's amplified. So it gives you the deeper revelation of the Strongs. Many times they put the Strongs in brackets. So it says, and when the maidens pleased Haggai and obtained his favor, and he speedily gave them the things for her purification and her portion of food, and the 7 chosen maids to be given her from the king's palace, and he removed her and her maids to the best apartment in the harem. So, when the king commanded, and okay, let's read, sorry, I didn't even tell you where I was reading, Esther chapter 2. Let's start at verse 8. Okay, let's start at verse 7. It says, he had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The maiden was beautiful and lovely, and when her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's command and his decree were proclaimed, and when many maidens were gathered in Shushan, the capital, under the custody of Haggai, Esther also was taken to the king's house into the custody of Haggai, keeper of the woman. And the maiden pleased, so Esther pleased Haggai and obtained his favor. So there was something about Esther that was different. She pleased Haggai. She pleased him. There was a humility about her, something about her that pleased him. And he speedily gave her the things for her purification. You see, the things for her purification. So he's trying to help her with the purification process. And her portion of food, and the 7 chosen maids to be given her from the king's palace. And he removed her and her maids to the best apartment in the harem. And Esther had not made known her nationality or her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her not to do so. So you see, she was being able to be put there for a purpose, for a plan. There was a reason. There was a purpose. There was a plan for her life. And she was going to be put there for a purpose, for a plan. She had an identity, but it was being hidden. And we know the story of Esther, and the story of Esther is beautiful. But we need to look at the Esther in our lives, look at the Esther in our own lives. What is the Father saying to you? What is the Father doing with you? What is it that you've been called for such a time as this? What is your function in this piece of the puzzle, of this greater plan that Abba has in these last days, in this time What is your purpose? What is your plan? And is He busy with a purification process? Because He's wanting you to fulfill that purpose and that plan. Because you have come into the kingdom. You have come into this palace where there's going to be only one king. And your heart needs to be for that king and for Him alone. And there has to be nothing else there. I'm sure Esther was desiring to be with her uncle. I'm sure Esther was desiring to be with her friends, with Jesse, her friend. I'm sure Esther was desiring to be able to go to many places and be free. But she had been chosen. She had been put in a palace. She had been chosen for her to be able to come into a kingdom. And now her mindset and now her whole focus was going to have to change. She had to leave behind that which she knew. She had to leave behind that which was a life that she had before. And now she had to lay it down and say, you know, I know that was part of my life, but this is where He's got me now. And you see, Father does that. Father brings us into different areas. He changes things in our lives. He doesn't leave us in the same place. You've got different seasons that you come into. And I mean, I'm not saying that all of you have drastically had a change like I've had a change, but He's taking us into different seasons of our lives. And sometimes when He brings us into the new season, we are still busy looking at the old season and wanting to be there and pining for the things that was there, when He's trying to say, can you just look ahead? Can you just embrace where you are right now? Can you just allow me to be able to take you through the process, even though right now your flesh is kicking up against it, even though right now it seems to be so painful, but you cannot see the road ahead. Just like Esther couldn't see the road ahead, just like Esther couldn't see that she was to become queen. She was up against how many contestants? But here was Haggai, who had found favor. She found favor with Esther, just like Joseph found favor in Potiphar's house, just like Joseph found favor when he was in the prison. Because when the Father has got a call on your life, the Father has a purpose and a plan for you to be able to come into, and therefore you will receive His favor. That's going to be able to do what it is that He needs you to do. But you must be willing. Verse 11, and Mordecai, who was an attendant in the king's court, walked every day before the courts of the harem to learn how Esther was and what would become of her. So he was still concerned about what was going on, but he knew that she needed to be where she needs to be. Just like even right now, my husband is very concerned about where I am, and every day I'm able to speak to him, and every day he wants to know how am I doing, but he understands that this is where I need to be right now, and I need to understand that this is where he needs to be right now. Now when the turn of each maiden came to go into the king Xerxes after the regulations for the woman had been carried out for 12 months, since this was the regular period for their beauty treatments, 6 months with the oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet spices and perfumes, and the things for the purifying of the woman. So you see, in this year process, and this was a year process, but you need to understand that the Father's year process can be longer than a year. because the process is going to be as long as what you allow it to be. Because this is what I realized. I realized that we can be like the Israelites in the desert that can go around a mountain, go around a mountain, go around a mountain, because he's trying to deal with us in an area, but we rebel against him in so many different ways. And the Father is trying to reveal to me that we are the ones that keep ourselves from going where we need to go, because we do not trust him, because we do not believe him, because we do not surrender to him to allow him to have his way. And these are the things of what I want to share in the time of what I've been going through, and of the scriptures that the Father's been opening up to me, of me being able to reveal his deeper plan, his deeper revelation of the things that he's trying to show me, so that we understand what is the Father's purpose, what is the Father's plan. Yes, in this bigger puzzle, we are each a piece of the puzzle. But at the end of the day, the pieces of the puzzle need to fit together to fulfill the greater plan, which has to do with his kingdom. And so we need to understand that the process that we're going to have to go through, and this is what we need to understand, is that there's an oil of myrrh. And what is this oil of myrrh? This oil of myrrh is this. Myrrh was what Yahushua was prepared with, what he was anointed with. That was for burial. That's for death. So we need to understand that there is a level of death that needs to go in us that is not easy. We need to die. There's many things within us that is of our flesh, our fleshly desires, things that are in our mind, things that are in our emotions, things that are in our will, things that are going to need to die. And we need to understand that in that, the death is in many areas. So it's not just in ourselves, but there's, like he says to me, look at the mindset that you put yourself. You know, when I spoke this prophetic word over you, that this is the land of your inheritance, the way you see your inheritance and the way that I am seeing your inheritance of the way I saw my inheritance was when I was going to come to the land of Israel. It was definitely not going to be without my children. Why? Because when he told me this word was 12 years ago when I came to Israel for the first time in 2006. And when I stood on the top of Mount Carmel, and when he said to me, this is the land of inheritance, this is where you belong, I knew that this is where I'm coming, but it was never going to be without my children. But 12 years down the line, they have their lives that they need to walk out. They have their lives, and they need to walk out their path. And they are part of a bigger puzzle and a bigger plan, and my job was to be able to equip them and to be able to pray for them and to be able to make sure that they walk in the ways of the Father. Train up a child in the ways that they are to go in the Father, so that they may never depart from him. And I have done what I could in terms of being able to bring them up in the ways of the Father as much as what I could. But now I need to understand that that which was imparted, I need to trust them over to the Ruach of Yahuwah. And so they were given 7 maidens that were going to take them through this purification process. So there is like 7 levels just about that you are going to have to go through. And I don't have the insight into all of this, and I don't have the knowledge of all of this. I'm sharing with you what the Father has laid on my heart, what the Father has been showing me, that he's saying there's different levels, and you need to understand, just as you overcome this one hurdle, you got the next one to be able to come, because the 7 is the number of divine perfection, of spiritual perfection. And so just like there's going to be 7 levels that we need to go, there's 7 spirits of Yahuwah. And these are the things that he's taking me deeper to understand, and these are the revelation that he's giving me, which I am sure at the time of when He's been able to perfect it in me in a deeper way, I will be able to share that with you. But right now, He's busy scratching the surface of it. Because you see, Haggai to me is representing the Ruach of Yahuwah. But understand that that's the great I am that I am. That is the Ruach of Yahuwah Himself. But the Ruach of Yahuwah is made up of the 7 spirits, which is the 7 branches of the menorah, which is spoken of in the book of Revelation that we need to understand, which is Yeshua Himself, which comes back to us understanding what is written in Isaiah chapter 11, and which is written in Zechariah. And this has to do with the anointing, and this is for us to be able to understand that there is a bigger revelation for us to understand with what the Father wants to do. And I'm just sharing this with you because I am not going to say that I'm there yet, because I'm not, because the Father is trying to take me through a process, and I'm sharing with you my journey. And I'm saying that we need to broaden our horizon in understanding that we are going through different levels of His purification process, and it's not just, oh, I've been purified and I've arrived. No. We need to go deeper, as there's different levels. As there were these 7 maids given to them, and they were to be able to help them in a burial process. So there's a burial process of preparing them with the oil of myrrh for 6 months. Understand, this wasn't just a little Mickey Mouse process. It was 6 months. And then, from there, they're going to be able to then go through the purification with the sweet spices and the perfumes. And that's when He starts to beautify us, and that's when He starts to take us deeper. Because we need to understand something. You know, we don't just arrive, and what we do not understand is the things of our flesh hold us back. The things of our flesh will be there to be able to hold us back. And the comforts of our flesh weaken the spirit. And that's the thing we need to understand. That is why the Father has been busy with us in having to teach us what it means to crucify our flesh. The flesh nature, our mind, our will, our emotions, this body subjecting us. That is why in my first 6 months, it was very strenuous. I mean, my body had to come into position where all of a sudden it was climbing up and down 4 flights of stairs more than once a day, which we weren't even used to climbing stairs. And now this body is having to walk wherever it wants to go, because it was used to getting into a car, driving wherever it wants to go. And now it's got to walk wherever it wants to go. Now you've got to catch buses. And it was all this uncomfortable place of dying in an area of your flesh that you were not accustomed to. And then, like I've explained before, where I've said, and then many things coming up in my heart where many, myself getting angry, and it's a different culture, it's a different people, it's a different way, it's different things. You don't speak the language. It's, you want to go buy something at the grocery store, and it's a challenge, because now it's not written in the language that you know, and you don't even understand what half these things are, and everything is in a mess, and you're accustomed to your grocery stores, you're accustomed to a Spar, you're accustomed to a Pick and Pay, you're accustomed to a Hyperama, you're accustomed to a Woolworths, whatever the case may be. You've had this since you were a little child, and now all of a sudden everything is different. And this was a major dying in the flesh. And then you're dealing with a rude and obnoxious kind of people, that they can be at the best of times. And then you want to speak a language, and then they'll just look at you because they don't understand you and they don't care to try and speak to you in English. Or they'll just tell you straight, Hybrid, Ivrit, Lo Inglit. Hebrew, no English. So all of this becomes a challenge, beloveds. And this is what the Father is trying to say, that all the comforts of the flesh weakens the spirit. And that is why Esther was being put through amazing, beautifying, purification process to be able to bring her to a place of where she could finally come and be presented before a king. And she's being prepared. And you see, the others don't say that. It just says, and the perfumes and the things for the purifying. So the others just say for the beautifying, the other versions of the Bible. But this one says for the purifying. So we need to understand that this is part of our purification process. And the Father will allow us to go through discomforts in our flesh to purify and bring that burial process of a dying of the flesh. And you see, those spices, those oils, is part of the anointing that we then receive, that's going to be made up of what it truly means to be led by the Spirit of Yahuwah. To truly be able to come and be a vessel that will be used for His kingdom, because it will be one that's going to be the bride that's going to have oil in her lamps, that has taken the time to be filled with that oil, because she's allowed the purification process. And you see, those, I understand, being those 7 maids as being 7 levels of purification that we're going to have to go through. And I don't understand what the 7 levels are, but all I know is that it's the different levels as the Father has got to go deeper, because everything about His Word is got different levels. Because we need to understand that there's the 7 spirits of Yahuwah spoken of in Isaiah chapter 11. It says, and the Spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him. And this is Yahushua, which is the root of Jesse, the branch, which is symbolic of the menorah, which is the Ruach of Yahuwah, but symbolic of the one who came in the flesh, Yahushua himself. And it's the Spirit of Yahuwah. So this is the Spirit of the great I am that I am. And it's the Spirit of wisdom, of understanding, the Spirit of counsel, of might, the Spirit of the knowledge, and the reverential fear of Yahuwah. And so these are the different levels of the different tests that we need to be able to go through, because He needs us to be able to understand that we need to develop in wisdom, we need to develop in understanding, we need to develop in counsel, we need to develop in might, we need to develop in knowledge, we need to have the reverential fear of Yahuwah. And so these things are going to take us deeper in our purification process. You see, and that is why the Father is really revealing to me right now that we need to be able to be those beings that walk in the Spirit and in truth. You see, because we need to be able to be one that is filled with the anointing to be able to do the greater work of what He needs to do in this hour. And so that is how he was just revealing to me Esther. You see, then in this way the maiden came to the king. Whatever she desired was given her to take with her from the harem in the king's palace. So the Father opens up his way for us and says, whatever you desire. He gives you the desires of your heart. But are your desires selfish? I just remember the movie of Esther that to me was just so profound. You know, I've watched that movie so many times. It was like, oh my goodness, I just loved that movie. I just loved everything about that movie. And to me, I just remember of how when they opened up the king's harem and they were able to go get the treasury, and how these women would walk out of there with all this gold and silver and jewelry. And in the evening she went, and next day she returned into the second, where am I now? Into the second harem and the custody of the Shashagaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She came to the king no more unless the king delighted in her, and she was called for by name. You see, but here's the key. And this is what I want to share with you. And the key is in verse 15, because you see, at the end of the day, she had the opportunity to be able to get whatever she desired. But who was there? Haggai had been assigned to her, the Ruach of Yahuwah. And was she going to seek the Ruach of Yahuwah to be able to truly find what is his purpose and his plan? What does the king desire? What is the king's desire? What is it that he wants? Now when the turn of Esther, verse 15, and when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter, had come to go into the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's attendant, the keeper of the woman, suggested, and Esther won favor in the sight of all who saw her. And you see, this was very interesting to me, why Father was giving me this very story. Because you see, we're entering into this time now of this 10th month. Of the month of where it says Tevet. It's Tevet here, but it can also be Tevet. In the 7th year of his reign. So, you know, and Esther was taken to King Xerxes into his royal palace in the 10th month, the month of Tevet, in the 7th year of his reign. And so this was very interesting to me, because why was he giving me the story at this time? Because I'm thinking, Abba, what are you busy with me now in this time? And this is when he started to show me the story of Esther, and showing me the desire of my heart, and showing me that this is the month of Tevet. This is the very month of December. The month of December is the month of Tevet. So going from December into January, as we entered into the new moon, we entered into the time of this Tevet. And this was the very time of when Esther was being chosen to go into the palace of the king. And this was amazing, because I'm thinking, my goodness, Abba, you're getting me to read this. Why are you getting me to read this now? because this is the month of Tevet. This is the month of Tevet. And so, as you know, we are going into this time, and Abba revealing my heart to be telling me, I'm taking you through this purification process. I'm taking you through this because your desire needs to be for me and me alone. Your desire of what it is that you want needs to be for me. Check your hearts. We've just had a time now where we've had, to me, I don't know how everybody else celebrated it, but to me, it was the altar dedication of my life being altered, being dedicated on an altar, me dedicating myself again, of doing introspection and saying, Father, reveal to me what is there that's standing against you. That is why when I was lighting the menorah, it was all about the anointing, all about this anointing coming over me. Now we're looking at Esther and this anointing and the purification and her preparation of what she's going through to be able to stand before the king. Now, I don't always blame these things, and I don't always understand how it all comes together and how this is all coming together. If we are supposed to be the temple of the Father, of where He's going to dwell, and where He wants our hearts to be an altar dedicated unto Him, then He's going to need to be able to cleanse it. And that is why, for me, like I explained to you guys, when I was going through this time of celebrating Chanukah, it's a time of dedication. It's a time of me going through dedication. And so now, this has taken place, and then as this takes place, we come into a time of where we now enter into this month of Tevet, which is now when we're going to stand. Esther is standing before a king. And when she was able to go into that harem where she could choose whatever she wanted, she needed to listen to the wisdom of Haggai to be able to say to him, what is it that the king desires? What is it? I want nothing lest what it is that you show me, because you know the heart of the king. So we ask the Ruach of Yahuwah, show me what is it that is in my heart that is not pleasing to you, so that I may be one that can stand before you to please you, to do your bidding, to do whatever it is that you have me to do in a kingdom, so that I can be a bride that can stand by your side, to be used in this hour, in this time, for the glory and the honor of your name. And the king loved Esther. And so you see, and so Esther was taken, verse 16, so Esther was taken to the king into his royal palace, in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight, more than all the maidens, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Is that where we are, beloved? Is that where we are? That the king can love us, that the king can find favor and grace that can be bestowed upon us, so that he can give us the crown of life, the crown of life that's going to be we won't go into Revelation right now, but that crown that was given because they were persecuted, tested and trialed and proved faithful, they received the crown. So there's a crown that's got to be given. And, oh goodness, I don't know, I wasn't planning to go here, but let's just go look and see James. Now I'm sitting with even a Bible that is not a Bible that I normally read. Let me just pick up my scriptures. Let me go look at James. We need to understand the bigger picture, because you see, it's not just, we always see the picture of Esther coming into the palace, and it's wonderful, Esther coming into the palace, and, Esther being chosen as his queen, but do we understand what was the process that Esther had to go through? She had to go through a burial process. She had to die. She had to go through this process of where, she had to die to her, she had to die to her mind. She had to die to her will. She had to die to her emotions. She had to die to those things that she was holding dear to. That she was holding on to all these things. But at the end of the day, this is not quite what the Father wants of us, to hold on to the things that, you see, those things that bring us comfort in our flesh are keeping us further from the Spirit of Yahuwah, from the Ruach of Yahuwah. And Esther is very important to understand in this time, because at the end of the day, she was given the crown because her heart was after her king. Because at the end of the day, she took the time to go through the purification process. She took the time of allowing those depths that she had to go through. She took the time of being able to allow the Spirit of Yahuwah to be able to train her. She was willing to go through the tests and the trials. Imagine how difficult it was for her. Can you just imagine her being in that palace, not revealing her identity, yet she stayed faithful to not being able to eat anything that was unclean, to be able to stay faithful to who she was, her identity of being a Hebrew. So we, in this time of where we are, in this festivities and celebrations and all of these things that are going on around us, and we've just had this Christmas and we've had all these things, and now we're about to enter into this New Year celebration and all of this that is ahead of us. Have we partaken of the things of this world, of the things that are defiled, or have we been able to stay faithful to the Father in this time of saying, Abba, my Father, no matter where I'm in, and I'm in this place of where I've been taken, but I'm going through a purification process, and I need to stay faithful to Him and not submit to the ways of the world and the things of the world. And not be taken up by the festivities. And that is the beauty of living in this land, because we have no festivities. It's business as usual. Our Christmas day was spent going on a bus, going to Beersheba. I still wanted to take a photo, send you guys and say, well, tell me, where's Christmas in this? It's business as normal. People are going about their normal business. There's no Christmas decorations. There's no Christmas carols. There's no big, all these Christmas decorations being put up. There's nothing. There was nothing of that. There wasn't even a sign. As a matter of fact, on that 24th, we were sitting, I sat in a class of a Hebrew class for 4 hours, and then came out because Elsie wasn't there. She was with the Italian people that came to stay with us. And then I sat with her for almost 4 hours trying to relay what I had received so that we could catch up. And we both sat looking at each other and we said, my goodness, imagine if this is supposed to be Christmas Eve. There wasn't a touch of it. There wasn't even a sign of it. It wasn't that the malls were busy, filled with people because let us do our last minute Christmas shopping, and now this is Christmas Day and children are running around and they're also excited because of a Father Christmas, and in all the churches they're singing Christmas carols because now, Jesus has just come into the earth, and there was no sign of that. That wasn't even a thought. And you see, that's the difference of living in a place where it's walking according to the Father's word. This is a place that's the set-apart place. You are not going to be exposed to that. But you see, for you to get to this place, you must have paid a price in the place of where you are. You have had to learn to surrender, where it was very difficult for us because, my family, my brothers and my mom and my dad and all of them wanted to celebrate Christmas. And then Christmas Eve was supposed to be at my house and Christmas Day at my sister-in-law. But we don't celebrate Christmas. And, so what do we do? And eventually, to just keep the peace, eventually we decided that's it. We go camping every year, and, because we're away. But even if you go away, then people come around you and, Merry Christmas and, and Happy New Year. And you don't need to partake of that because it's not part of your world. And so we need to understand that at the end of the day, we need to be about the Father's business. And so this was Esther in the palace being about the Father's business and saying, what is it that pleases my King? And she's allowing herself to go through the process of what she's going through because she wants to please her King. Because she wants to be about the King's business and not her own. And she found favor in the sight of the King, and she found favor in the sight of the people. Because even though she was there in that palace, she had to stay faithful to her identity of who she was, but she had to find favor with the King. But by her being faithful to Abba Father, who was the first king of the one that she was being faithful to, she was first and foremost being faithful to Abba Father, the one whom she served, the one whom she loved, the one who doesn't get mentioned once in this book. But yet, he's hidden in the pages of this book everywhere you turn. And as she's being held faithful, as she's being kept faithful to him, he is being able to do a greater work through her than she was even going to understand. Because she needed to stay faithful to the purpose and the plan of why he put her there. So I want to say to you today, are you in a purification process? Are you being put through the oil of myrrh? Are you being purified with spices? Are you allowing the oil of Abba Yahuwah to be able to fill you, the 7 spirits of Yahuwah? Are you taking time to meditate on him? Are you taking time to allow the Ruach of Yahuwah to be able to expose the things within you, deep within you, to be able to allow you to see what are the idols that are in our hearts that are still standing in his way? And in this month of Tevet, are we allowing ourselves to be able to come before our King? Is our heart and our desire for him? Or have we allowed ourselves to be so taken up by the things around us that we don't have time for him? Interesting that this was the month of when Esther stood before the king. And that is why I couldn't understand why the father was trying to bring me to Esther. But he was trying to show me, but you see, Natalia, you've just had this time of where you had the dedication, the time of dedication, where you said to me, Abba, I come and dedicate myself to you in these 8 days. I come and surrender to you. I come and dedicate myself to you. Now the purification process is going to start, because now I need to surrender those areas that He's going to raise up in me, so that I can stand before my King. So that my King can say, where is it now? Goodness, His Bible now. So that the King can say, and the King loved Esther more than all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the maidens, so that he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And so you see, this is the crown that we need to receive by us going through many things. And that's what I was looking for in the book of James. But I know that it's here, and I'm trying to find it for you.